Grand Theft Auto, the trilogy, the definitive edition, the experience. That's right, everybody, the GTA trilogy has finally been unleashed upon the world. And after a very botched release that left the PC version unplayable for the entire weekend thanks to a plethora of unintended files being left in, we've all had a few days to really sink our teeth into this. In my opinion, these are pretty bad remasters. I feel that for everything that it tried to do right, it just misses the mark in other ways. In fact, you know that song that goes one step forward and two steps back? Yeah, that's pretty much how I feel about these. The one step forward was the lighting. I mean, it does look better than before. That's an improvement at least. And I like the way that the neon lights in Vice City look at night. Unfortunately, for some reason, they don't turn off in the daytime. That's one step back. And then you've got the fact that San Andreas and quite possibly GTA 3 and Vice City were based on the previous War Drum ports. You know, those. And that would be many more steps back. It all adds up into being a very mediocre experience, and something that does not feel right for a game that has a Rockstar logo on it. That's basically their seal of approval. Clearly, something went wrong. In GTA 3, I feel that the entire city still looks too saturated and bright. I'm not even sure if it reminds me of Liberty City stories anymore. It reminds me of Simpsons Hit and Run. Even when it's raining, it doesn't feel gray and dreary like it used to. USA Today interviewed one of the Rockstar producers who had supervised the development of the definitive edition, and according to him, when they first saw the new Liberty City, they thought it looked too clean. The team at Grove Street Games then went over everything with a mud brush, trying to make it look more dirty, but I don't think they really managed to capture how it felt originally. And then San Andreas has its own visual issues. For starters, you can see the whole map from the sky now, which is understandable since on modern platforms we no longer have the need for the old fog trick to hide the low draw distance. But something about it still doesn't feel right. I don't think the map was meant to be seen like this. Maybe they needed to do something to hide the rest of the map, or at least blur it out a lot to hide a lot of the imperfections that could be seen from a distance. It is LA in the 90s, so having smog would have made sense. In its current state, however, I just think it feels kind of unfinished. When you fly out, you can even see the edge of the ocean. And you can see the white line that marks the edge of where you can fly until before you're turned around. By the way, that white line is actually a gigantic wall that's underwater that you can swim through too, but as soon as you swim through it, you're gonna experience, some other issues. Yeah, I'm not sure what's going on. It feels like I really am playing an earlier build of the game. By the way, remember when I thought the rain actually looked good in the trailer when we saw GTA 3 in action? Well, I take that back. The rain looks god-awful, and I dislike it every time it starts. It's so bright white, it's like milk or something. It even glows in the dark, and I wish they wouldn't have even had the effect of it splatting on the ground since it doesn't even look good, it looks cheap. Okay, let's move on to character models. I think a big problem is how weird a lot of them look now. I think this picture that I've seen making the rounds is pretty much spot on. Besides looking like they're either made of clay or like they're out of a bad Pixar knockoff, everyone is still pretty shiny for some reason. Which makes sense given that these definitive editions were made by Grove Street Games, and back when they were War Drum, they previously made everyone in San Andreas look like they were dipped in oil for some reason. But another thing I don't like is how inconsistent some of the character designs are. I know not a lot of people were happy with the way Tommy looks now, but at least he has a sufficient amount of detail to his face. So much so that I think he actually looks a little out of place when he's standing next to other characters. Tommy got a complete redesign, but everybody else pretty much stayed the same minus a few wrinkles. They're just smoother looking versions of their PS2 selves. And I know that the protagonist of every game is always going to look more detailed, but San Andreas has almost the opposite problem to Vice City, at least when it comes to the character's clothing. With CJ's default outfit, they remade his shirt, but his jeans are the exact same texture as the old version, and from what I've seen so far, most of his clothing is exactly the same as it was before, just with upscaled textures. Nothing that CJ can wear has nearly the amount of detail as Claude and Tommy's outfits. Meanwhile, Big Smoke's outfit is very detailed compared to pretty much anything CJ could wear. It's like if they took one look at all the different outfits CJ had to wear and said, "Oh god, we gotta redo all that. Oh, screw this, just let the AI do it." And is it just me, or does something seem a bit different about his facial animations? Originally, when he walked into the house at the beginning, even his standard definition self looked like he was emotionally overwhelmed. Now he looks like he just ate too many edibles an hour or two before and they kicked in at a really bad time. At least he doesn't look like this anymore. You know, I just realized, all I've been talking about are the looks. Looks aren't everything though, right? We've got gameplay as well. Most of it is exactly the same as was in the originals, but we finally got the GTA 5 style targeting. I was happy that they were adding this, and when I got to try for myself, I realized that it only works for certain weapons, the ones that you can actually run and gun with. In GTA 3 and Vice City, you're only limited to the pistol and the basic Uzis, but if you wanted to use the shotgun, an assault rifle, or even the MP5 or a Magnum, you're going to be stuck in one spot. Even though those weapons have better stopping power, they might not be ideal to use if you're outnumbered. At least with the weaker weapons, you could try to run away. By the way, what's this supposed to be? Why does everybody that you aim at suddenly get a heavenly aura surrounding them? I really wish there was a way to turn it off. You know, I'm starting to realize that these old animations just don't translate well into the new targeting controls. This is a big problem with CJ and other characters too, though, and not just during shooting. They gave everybody new character models, but the new models on the old skeletons with the same old engine running under the hood makes for an almost uncanny valley experience in some ways. They didn't just give us Tommy on rollerblades with the inability to keep his arms and head still, they gave us Sweet's broken arm, the Hunchback of Grove Street, and whatever the hell is going on with Ryder. And CJ, with maxed out muscles, can look a little bit strange in the cutscenes. Maybe the biggest issue is that these are just remasters of 20-year-old games that were originally made for the PS2. Everything got a fresh coat of paint, so to speak, but without fixing or adjusting a lot of the other issues that were present, and without making any other improvements besides the ones that we got to controls in the user interface. It just feels cheap. But maybe these games are just too old for remasters by this point. Games that are newer than this are getting remade. Maybe remastering them would have made sense about 10 years ago. And I've already seen some people pointing out that maybe Rockstar should have just remade these games instead of remastering them. But remakes are expensive and time-consuming, and I'm not sure if they could have even happened with how Rockstar went about all of this. I don't think a more substantial remaster would have even been possible. The development of all three titles was outsourced to Grove Street Games, which from what I understand only has a team of just over 20 people. And given how their previous experience in working with San Andreas turned out, I'm not really surprised that these turned out the way they did. But what I want to know is, why didn't Rockstar just do these in-house? Imagine how these could have turned out if they had a larger, more experienced, and presumably better funded team behind them. Maybe one that could have even started sooner or been given more time to finish. I don't know how Grove Street Games operates, and I'm not in a place to make judgments on what they do on a daily basis. But in my honest opinion, I think that part of the reason why their ports in San Andreas in 2014 turned out so bad is because they were rushed. Going by what VadamM was able to discover and showcase in his video series about this, a lot of the issues present seemed like they would be easy fixes, but if they're on the clock trying to get a game out on time, how much time are they really going to have to fix everything? After playing the Definitive Edition, there were so many things that made me think that these games were still not finished. I think this time they might have been rushed into getting these out close to GTA 3's 20th anniversary. I mean, how else do you explain the amount of bugs present in this? Look at this. I found this glitch on my own on the very first day that I played this. You can either make him stuck like he's in the Matrix, or like he's attempting to dance very horribly. But then he's going to be stuck like this and you're going to be forced to reload the game. The chainsaw sound effect when you hold down R2 is broken. What used to sound like this now sounds like this. And how did this even happen? Welcome? Seriously? Look, we all make typos. Even in the original game, they misspelled Tommy's name in a subtitle at the end. But this one could be seen right in the first cutscene. How did nobody notice this and say, hey, that needs to be fixed right now before this gets released? We've also got AR guitars, which is unfortunately not a new type of weapon. If I can say one more thing about these for now, I think that they do feel like you're playing heavily modded versions of the original titles as well. And then it starts to make perfect sense why graphics mods that were previously no big deal for years were suddenly getting DMCA'd over the summer. Imagine if Rockstar pulled a Bethesda and actually hired a team of modders to assist with work on a Definitive Edition. Unfortunately, that is not the way things turned out. Even though these are still 3 games for the price of one brand new game, I still feel that $60 is a bit too much for them, especially considering how they are just remasters. So, what do you think now? Have you played the definitive editions of the trilogy, or are you holding out until they go on sale? Or do you have no plans to play them? Let me know in the comments, and thank you for watching.